What is the meaning of human life? How ought we to live? Does God exist? Is time real? What is truth? What is beauty? Metaphysical questions like these go beyond the limits of what we can measure and observe, and so they were designated nonsense. Banished, too, was the old philosophical picture of man as a spiritual creature whose life is oriented toward God or the good, and for whom philosophy is the attempt to contemplate the fundamental structure of reality. In its stead, a vision of human beings as efficient calculating machines, individuals whose intellectual powers enable them to move beyond their messy animal nature so as to organize and rationalize an otherwise brute and formless world. It was declared that there were no genuine philosophical problems. Questions that were not amenable to scientific investigation were embarrassing muddles or linguistic confusions. Had it not been for the interruption of war, Mary, Iris, Elizabeth, and Philippa may well have joined the men in the effort to usher in the brave new world of a philosophy divested of poetry, mystery, spirit, and metaphysics. Or, more likely, they would have finished their degrees and left philosophy behind them, convinced, as so many young women still are, that the subject was not for them. What happened instead was that the young men and the big beasts of British philosophy, A.J. Ayer, Gilbert Ryle, and J.L. Austin, were uprooted from Oxford and replanted in Whitehall and the War Office. Our 4 friends were left behind to finish their degrees in a disrupted Oxford, full of evacuees from London and refugees from Europe, and philosophy began to come back to life. The old metaphysicians were free once again to speak of poetry, transcendence, wisdom, and truth. The conscientious objectors asked what God and duty required of them. The refugee academics, speaking in a language that was not their own, shared scholarship and learning of a kind Oxford had never seen before. And the women, no longer in classrooms full of clever young men who liked winning arguments, turned their attention together onto the world. They were interested in the reality that surrounds man, transcendent or whatever, said Iris. And they had questions, lots of them. This is how it was that these 4 women learnt to see philosophy as they did, as an ancient form of human inquiry, kept alive through thousands of years of conversation, the task of which is to help us, collectively, to find our way about in a vast reality that transcends any one of us. When the young men returned from war, with their analytic methods and their disdain for mystery and metaphysics, our 4 friends were ready with a joint no. We began our own philosophical conversation in the summer of 2013. We met in Geneva, 2 of a small cluster of philosophers gathered to try to understand the nature of dreaming. Each of us saw in the other a fellow philosopher who loved the obscure, ephemeral, and tangential, and had a tendency to ask weird questions. We soon discovered that we shared a common despair at the state of academic philosophy, a discipline that we were both trying to make our way in. We knew that if we were to keep going, we would need to find a way to do philosophy in a more engaged, creative, and open way. We were bored of listening to men talk about books by men, about men, and we wanted to philosophize together as friends. We were looking for a story that could help us. Then, on the 28th of November, a letter appeared in The Guardian under the heading, The Golden Age of Female Philosophy. It was from Mary Midgley, a name we recognized, but not a philosopher whose work appeared on university syllabuses or was discussed in the major professional journals. In that letter, she set out the bare bones of the narrative you are about to hear. She explained how she and her friends, Iris, Elizabeth, and Philippa, had flourished in philosophy, a subject famously inhospitable to women, because at the crucial moment, the men had been called away to war. The trouble is not, of course, men as such, the letter went on. Men have done good enough philosophy in the past. She appeared to be suggesting, with a wink, that it was about time to consider what kind of philosophy women had done, and would do. The cosmos seemed to have...